Does anyone remember when anime MMORPGs used to be a thing? A time when you could ask anyone what some of their favorite MMOs were, and every single person would include games like Elsword, Mabinogi, Flyff, Ragnarok Online, Fiesta, or Tales of Pirates. Thinking about that makes me feel ludicrously old. Disregarding how I feel though, I have nonetheless been playing MMORPGs since I was a teenager, and I'm 28 now. So you can imagine how much experience I've accumulated under my metaphorical belt. Since I'm, sitting here in my underwear as I record this. Yes, because I don't have a real job. In the genre over the years, especially in relation to anime MMOs. I was there during the golden age of MMOs. I watched World of Warcraft grow into a colossal titan. I saw companies like GPotato, Outspark and Aeria Games all rise with anime titles that shook the very foundations of the genre. New anime MMO after anime MMO released almost yearly, and with each subsequent release, the genre continued to fall victim to oversaturation. The genre, or anime genre more specifically, became so densely populated with games that the pool of players interested in the genre slowly spread out and filled the various games that continued to release. But the player base soon became strained. There were so many games and a very limited amount of players actively interested in them, forcing the anime niche to begin its slow descent into what we have today, a dead anime market with a handful of good titles left. The age of MMORPGs has long since passed, but that doesn't mean we don't still have a market left for anime MMOs to monopolize. Quite the opposite, actually. With the state of the anime market and lack of releases targeted towards this audience in specific, players are left desperately anticipating every anime release there is. Closers when it was announced, Soul Worker when it came over, MapleStory 2 when it launched recently, Period Chronicles when people first learned of it, Kurtzpell when its trailer was first released. So, with this video, my hope and intent is to address the topic, what anime MMORPGs are still worth playing in 2018, and what anime MMORPGs or just even MMOs are going to be worth playing going into 2019. Do note that all links to the games will be available in the description and the pinned comment for any fans interested in playing through the games listed. Also, note that no mobile MMOs will be included in this list. Next, we have the recently released MapleStory 2. MapleStory 2 is a free-to-play MMORPG developed by Square in association with Nexon. The game was originally released back in July 2015 in South Korea and launched globally just last week on October 10th. As MapleStory 2 just released recently, I don't really have as much experience in it or in its world as I do other MMOs, but I can tell you what I've experienced thus far. The game, while numbered like a sequel, is actually a prequel to MapleStory, the game MapleStory 2 is actually spun off of. It features a large open world, similar to something like Blade and Soul, that has areas instanced off from one another and shares various zones and NPCs with its predecessor. MapleStory 2 has, at least as of its current launch in the West, 9 distinct classes. Archer, which is pretty much the same in every game. Pew pew, I shoot arrows against people with giant cannons and control over the forces of flame, shadow, life and death, and... well, shit. Assassin, a shadow magic wielding, knife throwing, agile little squishy ninja. Berserker, a great sword wielding brute that makes use of their high HP and physical damage to just destroy hordes of enemies. Heavy gunner, not to be confused with light gunner. That's a touchy subject for them. Is a cannon wielding glass cannon. Knight, your traditional sword and shield tank and spank class. Priest, your local healer that you can't go anywhere without lest you end up face down in the dirt. Runeblade, the two-handed sword wielding non-berserker, is the berserker. If the berserker used some magic too, I guess. Thief, a dagger-wielding brigand that utilizes high speed and poisons to really mess their enemies up. Finally, the wizard, a staff-wielding mage that has control over fire, ice, and lightning, and is an indispensable part of the team due to their ability to not only regulate your room temperature, but also to start your campfire when you're hungry in the morning and want some fried eggs out in the wilderness, and you're too lazy to get all the firewood or flint or really go out and put any time or effort and just want someone to shoot a fucking fireball at an egg to that dragged on longer than I wanted it to, I'm sorry. Each class has their own unique storyline to follow through, similarly to the original MapleStory game. As a brief example, when I went with Wizard, I attended a prestigious magical academy that has a very old, powerful headmaster called Professor Gandalf Dumbledore. The combat is very action-focused, although probably not as flashy as its predecessor was. Skill effects are still very pleasing to behold, but there was just something about skills that flung you all over the screen that left a lasting impression on me. It is by far the most densely populated anime MMORPG right now, having over 40,000 concurrent players on Steam alone at any given time and tens of thousands of players through Nexon's own launcher. Exactly how many players are playing is impossible to estimate, but Nexon did reveal that they had over 1 million active players. So far, the game has yet to go the way of the traditional Nexon games, aka pay to win, so that's promising, but not ultimately indicative of whether or not it will remain as such. So what sets it apart? Its holy trinity of tank, healer, DPS, its dense population, relation to the original MapleStory, detailed storyline, entertaining combat, and a slew of updates, classes, zones, and more to be expected over the years to come. Next, we have Mabinogi. Mabinogi is a free-to-play social MMORPG, probably the only social anime MMORPG in existence, but by no means a social game like Second Life. Mabinogi was developed by South Korean company DevCat and published by Nexon. The game was released in South Korea in June 2004, Japan in April 2005, China in November 2005, North America in March 2008, Australia in June 2008, and Europe in May 2010. Mabinogi, interestingly, features unique hand-painted textures stylized with something called edge detection outlining. It's the only MMORPG I've seen utilizing this graphical style, and honestly, I would love to see an updated engine make use of it. There's no effective class system in Mabinogi. There are talents which focus similarly to classes, but you aren't really locked into them. Talents instead determine what skills your character excels at, providing stat boosts and increased experience for the skills that talent encompasses. Talents can be reset through the rebirth system that allows players to reset their level all the way back to level 1 while keeping all the skills that you've learned, talent ranks, and AP earned, making you stronger every time you rebirth. The talents in question are puppetry, close combat, archery, magic, battle alchemy, martial arts, music, lance combat, holy arts, transmutation, smithing, mercantile, cooking, tailoring, medicine, carpentry, and adventure. While many of those talents may seem self-explanatory, several are not. Regardless, Mabinogi allows players to play the game how they want to, whether that be by running dungeons, leveling up, grinding monsters, gear, crafting, or just adventuring. The combat is tab target, but instead of a traditional tab target that has you cycle through a list of skills, Mabinogi has you focus instead on a countering mechanic that makes combat arguably more tactical in nature than in most MMO. It's actually a little difficult to explain, especially in a video that's this long, but essentially, it makes combat require closer attention to what enemies are actually doing. The world itself, though, is especially large, having players make use of mounts, ships, and more to navigate its large open world. I've only had the pleasure of exploring a fraction of what Mabinogi has to offer, but it is one of the most unique MMORPG and by far the most unique anime MMORPG out there at this time. So, what sets it apart? Everything. Next in this list, we have Closers, or in this case, Code Closers, since I prefer Code Closers to the official Closers game. Closers is developed by Fnatic Games and published by Nexon and NMAS Entertainment. The game was released in South Korea in December 2014, Japan in August 2015, and North America in November 2017. Now, I've done quite a few Code Closers videos on the channel. It's probably the most heavily covered anime MMO on the channel, period, as I enjoyed it that thoroughly. Just like Elsword, Closers is a side-scrolling action beat-em-up MMO, but unlike Elsword, Closers functions like Soul Worker, making primary use of a hub that you take and complete quests in, then proceed to leave to participate in various dungeons to progress. There are various classes or heroes in the game occupying 3 different factions: the Black Lambs, the Wolf Dogs, and the Wild Hunters. Now, I do apologize in advance for butchering these characters' names, but here we go. The Black Lambs are comprised of Seiha, your traditional sword-wielding shonen lead, Salubi, a telekinetic that hits people with daggers because she thinks that'd be smarter or more useful than picking up 100 enemies simultaneously and just ripping them all in half. Yuri, a subgenre of anime that I love to watch when my wife is at work. I've always found immense difficulty at pronouncing this person's name, so I'm just gonna skip it and say this dude likes to hit people. And Mistletoe, a powerful gender-bending little Shota knight that makes you question your sexuality at times. Or, you know, the sexuality of people that are interested in lollies anyway. Never really been my thing. Honestly, I like my girls. Wait, when did this become about me? The Wolf Dogs are comprised of Nada, the foul-mouthed, quick-tempered knife user, Levia, the witch of the group, and also the kind of girl I'm into. She's apparently very good at following orders and super shy. Harpy, the babe of the group that uses bionic legs to wrap around people and choke them. Tina, yet another robot that uses various military weapons and can generate phase force. And Violet, the great sword-wielding Valkyrie. Finally, the Wild Hunters are comprised of Wolfgang, the librarian. Yes, the librarian. He's a librarian. Luna, the Aegis-wielding preteen ball of death. She likes origami. The official Closers version only has up until Wolfgang, whereas Code Closers has up until Luna. The Korean version of Closers has 2 more Wild Hunters though, Soma, who utilizes tonfas and enjoys playing with dolls, and finally Bai, the mystic that utilizes the Blade of Ice that has the power of dimensionals imbued within it. Again, these characters all have a backstory attached to them, however, Closers probably has the least developed arc for characters. Where Soul Worker and Elsword both give you a lot of character focus, Closers is much less focused on the characters and much more focused on the combat, which is where Closers really excels, honestly. The combat in Closers is one of the fastest MMOs I've played, and there is a very large emphasis on being able to successfully and effectively play your character. The world, as I mentioned, is completely closed off. There is a central hub that you remain in until you complete the story associated with that zone, then you move on to the next hub, rinse and repeat. So, what sets it apart? One of the best combat systems in an anime MMO, a large diverse selection of characters with unique fighting styles, a fun housing system, and active updates. Next, we have Eden Eternal Vendetta. Not Aeria Games' Eden Eternal. I would never recommend an Aeria Games game to anyone. So, Twin Saga and Aura Kingdom are out here, as there are just no good alternatives for them. But Eden Eternal Vendetta is an actively updated free-to-play open-world anime MMORPG that is a significant improvement to Aeria Games' Western port of the game. Eden Eternal, developed by X Legend and published by Aeria Games, released in China in November 2010, Japan in January 2011, and both North America and Europe in June 2011. Eden Eternal is the first traditional anime MMORPG we've actually listed so far. It has a normal class system, normal leveling system, normal world exploration system, and normal storytelling and progression system. There are admittedly quite a plethora of classes to choose from. Thief, martial artist, blade dancer, and samurai comprising the melee spectrum. Hunter, engineer, ranger, and inquisitor comprising the range spectrum. Magician, illusionist, warlock, and luminary comprising the magic spectrum. Warrior, knight, templar, and dragon knight comprising the defense spectrum. Cleric, bard, shaman, and sage comprising the support spectrum. And mimic, which is just nothing. Eden Eternal has a unique leveling system, kind of reminiscent of Final Fantasy XIV with a few key differences. Players can level up both their character levels and their class levels as well. Gaining character levels unlocks additional branch skills, techniques that are usable among all classes that fall under the same category as the class you're leveling. Like Final Fantasy XIV, Eden Eternal has additional classes locked behind individual class requirements, such as Templar requiring a character level of 60, a Knight class level of 45, and a Cleric class level of 45. This provides players an incentive to keep playing and keep leveling additional classes, so they are not only capable of unlocking everything they want to, but are also capable of fulfilling every role necessary for their party or guild. Combat is tab target, yet very fast and very sleek. When I first played the game, I made note of how good the special effects looked, and I still believe they're even better looking than in more recent X Legend MMOs. One thing I would like to note about Eden Eternal Vendetta is that they took models, mounts, outfits, and more out of other Aeria Games games like Aura Kingdom and Twin Saga and implemented them into Eden Eternal, providing a larger selection of player outfits, pets, mounts, and other cosmetics that you wouldn't normally find in-game. So, what sets it apart? Its sleek graphical style, its unique use of a detailed class system, and the fact that it's one of Aeria Games' only good games. Ragnarok Online is probably the OG anime MMORPG. Everyone either knows or has played Ragnarok Online at one point in time, right? Ragnarok Online is an open-world free-to-play MMORPG that was released back in South Korea in August 2002, North America in June 2003, Europe in April 2004, and Australia in December 2004. I never played Ragnarok when it was pay-to-play, so I'm unable to specifically comment on it how it was then, but I did have the opportunity to jump into it a few times over the later years after it went free-to-play. Now, jobs are by far the most important aspect of Ragnarok Online. Originally, the job system consisted of 13 classes, but over the course of its life, it has expanded to over 50. Each class specializes in certain skills that correspond to the traditional archetypes in RPGs, and characters are capable of leveling both their player level and job level. There are 3 stages of progression for classes, and far too many for me to attempt to read out verbally, let alone try and come up with something witty to remark with. Suffice it to say, there are your traditional melee trees, magic trees, archer trees, thief and assassin trees, healer trees, and crafting trees. Regarding the 3 stages of progression though, let's say you begin as a mage. Mages can either become a wizard or a sage upon hitting the level requirement to advance your class. Upon obtaining a player level of 99 and a job level of 50, players become able to rebirth their character, essentially functioning the same way as it does in Mabinogi, resetting your player level and job level all the way back down to level 1. Reborn characters gain access to a new class upon hitting the requirement once again, in this example, a high wizard and scholar instead of a wizard or sage. And these transcended job types have a larger selection of skills and stat points to allocate. Their third advancement, in this case our choice being between a warlock or sorcerer, provides additional skills and allows players to break through the traditional level cap of 99. As you can tell, there is a lot to the class system in Ragnarok Online, and it is a lot to comprehend. Ragnarok Online is the only point-and-click MMORPG in this list, allowing players to move through mouse clicks. Combat is fairly simple tab target as well, making heavy use of clicking just in general. The world is also very expansive, having new content added all the way back since 2002. It's a little difficult navigating with the somewhat frustrating at times camera angle and the point and click controls. So what sets it apart? It's Ragnarok fucking Online. What more is there to say?